Hello students, from this class we will be starting with iron metabolism. Now it might be too long and repetitive if I take it in one whole class, so I will be splitting it into two very short classes for your comfort. Now as you know, iron metabolism is actually included in competency 6.9 and 6.10, which includes all the mineral metabolism, right? So in these two classes, the specific learning objective is to actually get you acquainted about the dietary sources, the recommended dietary allowances and the functions of iron, which is easy to know. The next is you should be able to describe the absorption, transport and storage of iron in the body. Very important. Okay, so the first two objectives we will be taking on in this class, and in the next class we will be discussing the clinical aspects, that is the diseases. So explain the clinical conditions resulting from deficiency and excess of iron, as well as the tests that are used to detect and evaluate iron status. So first, what about the distribution of iron? Okay, you will be asked what is the total normal content of iron in the body, and you should be able to tell that it's 3 to 5 mg. Okay, and as you know, most of it is present in blood. Okay, there is no denying that, and the rest is present in liver, bone marrow and muscles, but it's so important, it is present in almost all the cells, right? Now adult male, okay, that 14.5 gram hemoglobin per 100 ml, this is the value of adult male, and this is also not a single value, it will vary from what textbook you read, but I have given a mean value. Okay, it will vary, say from 13 to 17, from 12 to 16, like that way. So just make sure you learn a specific range from a specific textbook, as I tell you, and stick to that. Now in hemoglobin, 75% of total iron exists over there. Okay, so where are the rest? The rest is in myoglobin and ferritin. Okay, now here's the catch over here. You will see that 75%, 15% and 5% really doesn't add up to 100, do they? So as these 5%, these 5% are actually present and as various proteins and enzymes and other various receptors. So I will be telling you that in a short while. So remember this one, 14.5 gram hemoglobin per 100 ml, about which 75% of total iron, which contains 75% of the total iron. All right. Now, important thing. So these constitute the ones that, apart from this one, apart from whatever is mentioned over here, the rest 5% is all about this. So these are the ones which contains all the rest 5%, among which you need to remember only 2. So it's very easy to remember: cytochrome P450 or any cytochrome C cytochrome oxidase. As you are tackling on biological oxidation chapter, you know cytochromes. Cytochromes are the ones that are rich in iron. All right, and apart from that, you might be asked that name some enzyme that contains iron. Okay, so it's easy, you can see over here: catalase and anything, nitro NO oxidase, lactoperoxidase and other enzymes like aconitase, okay, succinate dehydrogenase. So all of them are rich in iron. Now if you ask me that, sir, you have given us such a descriptive chart regarding molecular weight, number of iron atoms, and where are the sites that these are present? See, site is very easy to remember. Aconitase is a part of TCA cycle that you already know. All right, transferrin present in plasma and hemosiderin, ferritin, all this I will be discussing in a short while. The complexes like the enzymes of the electron transport chain are present in mitochondria. Okay, so these are not difficult to remember, but as I told you, you need to remember only 2. Okay, so either you can remember cytochromes that are also present in all the cells, as well as you can remember aconitase and one of these enzymes. So 2 proteins and 2 enzymes. Okay, over here 2 proteins you can remember: cytochrome B1, cytochrome C, cytochrome P450, and enzyme if you want to remember: cytochrome oxidase and anything, succinate dehydrogenase, xanthine oxidase. So these, the choice is up to you, but this chart becomes important for postgraduate students. Okay, so as I am telling you, in all classes there are implications, much more implications to iron metabolism rather than this simple undergraduate class. So when you are preparing for PG, mind it, all of them will be important now. So number of iron atom, what is the molecular weight, where are these located, trust me, all of this you need to read meticulously. But not for now, you can simply skip these two slides just by remembering two proteins and two enzymes. Okay, so we come to the next part, which is a bit interesting. That is the normal life cycle of iron. Not the life cycle, but the normal kinetics. How iron is actually dealing with its cycle in the plasma. So over here you can see, normally we eat from our balanced diet, we get 20 mg of iron. Remember one thing, I deliberately did not tell you in the previous slide, but I think I should tell you just at the beginning. Over here you can see 14.5 gram of hemoglobin. Okay, in your syllabus there are only two things that you must know in grams. Okay, number one is hemoglobin and number two is protein. Rest all are in mg. Okay, blood glucose is in mg, urea, creatine, everything is in milligram, but proteins are in gram and hemoglobin is in gram. So that's a small recap. So 20 mg of iron is taken normally in balanced diet. Okay, from that you can see 19 mg is excreted in feces. See, okay, so we are dealing with only 1 mg. So this 1 milligram of iron is actually available from our diet. So how does this 1 mg ultimately makes 14.5 gram of iron hemoglobin? This is because iron is already present in our body. A large part of iron is already being recirculated in our body, and we need only a small percentage of iron from the gut. That too, it is needed when there is a requirement. If there is no requirement, almost everything will be excreted out in feces. You get my point? So let us first see how iron can be lost, because we know iron is existing in our body. Okay, this is the part from where it will be, this is a junction. Okay, as you see, there are important junctions in train stations from which trains will go and come back to various other terminal stations. So plasma is a junction of iron. From here there are two dead ends. Number one dead end is an accident where there is loss through bleeding. Okay, it may be an accidental bleeding or it will be routine bleeding in case of females, where there is a loss of iron via menstrual bleeding. And the next is loss through skin. In case of insensible perspiration, iron is also lost. So these are the two routes in which iron are lost. Okay, there may be other reasons, hookworm infestation and all those things. I'll get back to that in the next class, where I will be discussing the diseases. But for now, just remember these are the two important sources. Number one is loss through skin and number through bleeding. So apart from that, the whole iron is circulated and recirculated in our body. So then what are the areas from which iron are recirculated? Now you can tell the answer, because I already told you what are the forms of iron. So as I told you, maximum iron is in hemoglobin. Okay, so hemoglobin is formed and destroyed, and that iron is circulated and recirculated. That iron is reused. Same in case of myoglobin, but hemoglobin is present in blood and myoglobin is present in muscles. A small amount of iron is present in ECF, extracellular fluid. I told you enzymes few are iron containing enzymes, so that are also important. Those enzymes are synthesized, then they are degraded, and the iron can be reused from the system. And the last but not the least, very important, a substantial amount of iron is stored in the body for emergency purposes. So the storage form of iron is known as ferritin. Okay, there is also another form of iron that is known as hemosiderin. Okay, and the condition in which hemosiderin is in excess is known as hemosiderosis. I'll get back to that later. But now, for now, you should know one most important storage form of iron in which it is majorly stored is ferritin. So this is the normal Iron kinetics, you can take a snapshot of it. This normal iron kinetics does not come that much in theory question, but it will be asked loosely in Viva. Tell me, where are the sources of iron? From where iron is recirculated? Then you should be able to tell, sir, hemoglobin, myoglobin, plasma, ECF and storage form. Alright, but what is most important? Most important is something which I will get back to, which I will get to in the next slide. But for now, let us deal with the scrappy part. Okay, crappy part. What is the crappy part? That is the daily requirement of iron. As I told you in the figure itself, 20 mg is the daily allowance. Okay, we can, as per stable Indian diet, 20 mg is allowed, in which minimum 1 to maximum 1 to 2 mg is absorbed. Okay, rest is excreted as feces. Now this is important because in children the value is a bit higher. As you know, it gets higher, it is 30 mg in growing children, and in case of pregnancy it is 40 mg. So children 30 mg, pregnancy 40 mg. Why iron is important in pregnancy? During calcium lessons, while I was taking calcium, I told you iron and calcium are the two nutrients with which a pregnant lady is supplemented. They need to take routine iron and calcium. Why? Because the fetal structure is so that all of the iron and calcium is absorbed from the mother, especially in the last trimester of pregnancy. So a premature baby is often iron deficient and calcium deficient. Okay, but the thing is, why it is important? Iron is much more important than calcium. Okay, calcium can be supplemented externally using vitamin D3 and calcium supplementation, but generally iron is so important that a human physiology is designed as such that the fetus will get whole nutrition and the mother will become anemic. Seldom the fetus suffers from iron deficiency if there is a term pregnancy. Even if the hemoglobin of the mother is low, nature and evolution wants to take care of the progeny. It wants to sustain life, so the next generation is always taken care of. So the nature has designed in such a way that fetus will suck out all the iron from mother, so that its reserve is adequate for first 3 months. That is also another scientific explanation or reason, because for the first 3 months, minimum first 3 months, the source should be only exclusive breast milk. Ideally WHO says it should be for the first 6 months, but at least for the first 3 months it is only milk, and milk is a very very poor source of iron. Milk is a poor source of iron. That is why we need, the body needs, the fetus needs iron, because it will not get from milk. So all the iron that is needed for bone growth, that is needed for bone marrow growth, for all the increased blood growth, blood cells, so all are already present in the fetus. Okay, next we come to the sources of iron. As you know, all the leafy vegetables are good sources of iron. Liver is a good source of iron. Good jaggery is also a good source of iron, and it's often said that cooking in iron utensils, because iron diffuses, is also contributes to the intake of iron. But you should know that milk is a not very poor source. Okay, milk is a very 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 poor source of iron. Now in Indian diet, the majority of iron is taken from cereals, because our diet is designed in the form of cereals and pulses. The bulk of Indian source of iron is in the form of cereals. Next, we look at the factors that affect iron absorption. We know that out of 21 mg will be absorbed. Now that also are controlled by various factors. Number one is the ionic form of iron. So the reduced form of iron, that is the ferrous form, the lower valency. The oxidized form is ferric form. We need ferrous form for absorption. Ferric form is not absorbed, okay, in intestine. So Fe2 plus, remember Fe2 plus is the readily absorbable form. Now there are agents in the gut who helps in reduction. Those are gastric HCl, ascorbic acid, cysteine, sulfhydryl group, many stuff. But as you can see, one of them is actually a dietary component. We cannot prescribe gastric acid, we cannot prescribe HCl to a patient, right? So we can prescribe ascorbic acid or vitamin C. So vitamin C is a key ingredient that helps in reduction of iron from ferric to ferrous and helps in its absorption. Alright, so iron is often supplemented with vitamin C. Now there are factors that will inhibit iron absorption. So these two help in iron absorption. Now, this converts iron from ferric to ferrous, and ferrous form is absorbed. Ferrous absorbed and ferric is not absorbed. Now, one thing, the interfering substance, as you saw in many vitamin classes, that is phytic acid. Phytic acid and oxalic acid are present in various leafy vegetables and cereals that hampers iron absorption. Now this is quite contrasting. Leafy vegetable contains iron and leafy vegetable contains phytic acid and oxalic acid. Okay, that is one of the main reason that in case of Indian diet consists of cereals and leafy vegetables. Believe me, the major Indian diet, not for you students who are eating burgers and chickens rampantly. Okay, major Indian diet consists of the lower socioeconomic class, and they eat only rice, cereals and vegetables. They have got iron, but they also have got inhibitors. So majority are shedded in the feces. Now there are other minerals that will inhibit iron absorption, the most important being lead. So you can see it's written 1 atom of lead will inhibit absorption of 1000 atoms of iron. So that is one of the reason why in lead poisoning there will be iron deficiency anemia. You will read it in forensic. There are features of lead poisoning from A to Z. Anemia due to this, Bartonian line, blue line in gums, there is cataract, there is deafness, there is drops, there are many things. Okay, I will not go into that details because it's a very interesting thing on its own, but remember, lead severely hampers iron absorption. Now you can take a deep breath. Okay, you can take a deep breath because finally we are here at the most important question related to iron metabolism. Okay, that is iron absorption and mucosal block theory. Like in vitamin K, you need to know only K cycle if you forget everything. Like in vitamin E, you need to know only Boyle's visual cycle if you forget everything. Like in vitamin E, you only need to know the antioxidant, so on and so forth. This is that topic in iron metabolism which you cannot afford to forget. Fine, so pay your most attention to the next 15 minutes. Okay, now I give you some relaxation time to copy this diagram. Of course, I won't give you time to draw it. I now request you so that you can take your phone and take a snapshot of this screen. Okay, I give you 20 seconds. So please take a snapshot because I'll be discussing this diagram. I'll be going back to the previous slide so that you can take this diagram, keep this diagram in front of you, and you can tally with whatever I am telling you. Okay, so remember this is very important. So I think you have done copying this diagram. For those of you who are watching my class in your cell phone, I don't think how I can help you. Maybe multi-screen. Okay, very important. But I think after a while, if you go back to this slide and you tally with the diagram, you will be able to understand it easily. Okay, so just see whatever is happening. What is happening over here? So duodenum, upper GI, duodenum and jejunum are the sites of iron absorption. These are the two areas where iron is absorbed. Now most of the nutrients in our body are absorbed just like that. Okay, but the excretion level is actually regulated depending on the deficiency. You saw maximum are regulated by the kidney, and their excretion will be either controlled or they will be reabsorbed depending on the deficiency or excess. Iron is an exception because it is not controlled at the level of excretion, it is controlled at the level of absorption. Okay, right at the gate it is controlled. So iron is absorbed from the mucosa of duodenum and jejunum. So what is the funda? What is the actual principle? The thing is, when iron stores in the body are depleted, okay, absorption is enhanced. Means when body needs iron, iron absorption will be enhanced. This is not a big deal, okay. And when adequate stores of iron in the body are fulfilled, then iron absorption will be decreased. So it is very easy to understand. When iron stores are depleted, absorption will be enhanced. When adequate iron is stored, absorption will be decreased. This is referred to as the mucosal block of iron. So this is the mucosal block theory. Means the block will be at the level of mucosa. Okay. You already know that only ferrous form of iron is absorbed. So we at least know, we'll be able to tell conceptually. If examiner asks you what is mucosal block theory, you need to tell, sir, it is a mechanism of regulation of iron absorption, where iron is controlled at the level of, where iron absorption is controlled at the level of mucosa. If it is excess, if iron is in excess in the body, the absorption will be hampered or stopped. If iron deficiency is there in the body, absorption will be enhanced. This is the mucosal block theory. Now we come to the mechanism of mucosal block theory. What is the exact mechanism of iron absorption? I will be going back and forth to the next slide and this slide, so that it will be easier for you to visualize. Okay. Now very important, only ferrous form will be absorbed. Right. Now ferrous form, so first it needs to be reduced via the intestinal gastric HCl and ascorbic acid, all those things. It is reduced from ferric to ferrous. Now ferrous iron in this intestinal lumen binds to a mucosal protein. Okay, that is actually a divalent metal transporter. It is known as DMT1. So this is the first player that helps in iron absorption. So the iron first binds with this and then it is transported into the mucosal cell. So see over here. So this is the thing. So ferric iron, see 3 dot means ferric. 3 dot ferric iron, it is reduced to ferrous iron, and this ferrous iron binds with DMT1, which is present in the mucosal surface, and then this ferrous iron is absorbed into the mucosa. So this is step 1. Actually 3 steps. So first step, ferric to ferrous. The next step, it binds to the DMT1, and the next step, ferrous with the help of DMT1 is transported into the cell. Next, what happens? Inside the mucosal cell, it is again converted from ferrous to ferric. Okay, because these conversions continues to happen inside the cell. That ferric binds to a protein, okay, known as apoferritin. So apoferritin, it forms a complex with apoferritin to form ferritin. Okay, where did you hear the name ferritin? Yes, I told you the most important storage form of iron is ferritin, right? So it is in this mucosal cell where it is stored. See, so over here you can see the ferrous form is again converted to ferric form. This ferric form now binds with apoferritin, and a complex of ferritin and ferric form of iron is formed. Okay, so this is the storage form. Clear? Now, this is not just the end. Okay, we need iron for our body, right? So next, what happens? The iron needs to be lost to the bloodstream. From intestinal cells, it needs to go to the bloodstream when required. Okay, and that mechanism is actually different. How it happens? First, that iron in the ferritin is released. Whenever there is a need, that iron will be released. Okay, it will cross the mucosal cells with the help of a transporter that is known as ferroportin. Okay, ferroportin. So over here it is not mentioned, but I'll draw it for you. Over here there is another transporter, that is ferroportin. Remember, all you need to be very careful about what form is actually crossing the channel or mucosal surface and what form is being bound. Whenever iron is crossing the cell surface, it should always be in the reduced form. So see over here, whenever iron was coming in, it was coming in the ferrous form. Inside it is getting converted to ferric form, it is stored in ferric form. But whenever iron needs to be driven out from the cell, it is again getting converted to ferrous form, and then with the help of ferroportin, it comes out as ferrous form. Again it gets converted to ferric form. So what happens when it gets converted to ferric form? I'm sorry. So see, iron crosses the cell membrane as ferrous form. In the blood, it is reoxidized to the ferric state and it is transported by transferrin. Okay, so there is a lot of step. This may sound difficult, but please students, just go through this diagram and it will be very easy for you to understand. Transferrin, as the name suggests, it transfers iron. Okay, so now that iron is bound with transferrin, it will now go to whatever source there is the requirement. Okay, it may be required in the bone marrow, it will be required in the muscle for myoglobin. So let us revise once again. Iron is present in diet in ferric form or ferrous form. If it is present in ferric form, it needs to be converted to ferrous form. When it is converted to ferrous form, it is combining with DMT1, divalent metal transporter 1. It is crossing the cell membrane. This is the entry portal from intestine. So this is intestine, it is getting into the cell. Okay, so this is ferrous form. Ferrous form gets converted to ferric form inside the cell. What is the use of this ferric form? Ferric form binds to the ferritin. It actually combines with apoferritin to form ferritin. Okay, this is a complex. Now this is stored as ferric form. Now when there is a requirement of iron outside the cell, ferric form will again be converted to ferrous form. Ferrous form binds with ferroportin, and see, ferroportin, it will port, okay, iron. It crosses out the cell membrane as ferrous form. In blood, it again gets converted to ferric form, and ferric form binds with transferrin and it is transferred. Now you should know that there are many ferroxidases. Ferroxidase are those group of compounds that actually will, they do? They will convert ferrous to ferric, ferroxidase. So one example is ceruloplasmin. Okay, over here you can see in the diagram, iron crosses, it is first reduced to ferrous to cross the cell membrane and reoxidized to ferric state by ceruloplasmin. So this is a protein. So over here you can include this ceruloplasmin. Fine. We will deal with this ceruloplasmin when we study copper metabolism. Yes guys, copper is also important for you. So I think the mechanism of iron absorption is clear, and you know that iron is controlled at the level of absorption. So that is known as mucosal block theory. Right? Remember, this mechanism of iron absorption you should prepare on your own with a diagram, and you should be able to explain the examiner fluently in Viva. So now that we know the mechanism of iron absorption, now let us see how this mechanism is regulated. So this is actually the mechanism of mucosal block theory. You should know the theory, you should know the mechanism of absorption, and then we should know the mechanism of mucosal block theory, mechanism of iron absorption. Now I could have included I could have made an animation where these points appear one after another, but remember, any animation is good for live class for understanding, because in subsequent time you will be pausing this slide and you will be taking the notes. So I made it a point to include all of them in one slide, but don't look at everything, okay? Just follow me, okay? So the first point is mucosal regulation. So that is the most important mechanism of mucosal block theory. So what happens? Absorption of iron needs, DMT1 and ferroportin. So what does they do? DMT1 helps in transferring of iron from mucosal surface to the cell, and ferroportin helps in absorption from cell to blood surface. Okay, so this is important. So DMT1 and ferroportin. Now, both of them, synthesis of both of them are negatively regulated by a protein known as hepcidin. Very, very, very crucial. Okay. So reciprocally, I mean negatively. So what will happen? So if hepcidin is more, the synthesis of those protein will be less. And if hepcidin is less, synthesis of those protein will be more. So now you can relate. If you even forget the opposite mechanism of hepcidin, what I told you, if there is hypoxia or anemia, it means we need more iron in the body. So how can more iron be absorbed if there is excess DMT1 and ferroportin 1? And if they are high, hepcidin has to be low. So remember, this might be a bit confusing. If there is hypoxia or anemia, the synthesis of hepcidin is reduced. So ferroportin synthesis will increase. What does hepcidin actually do? As I told you, hepcidin decreases cell surface expression of ferroportin. If hepcidin is more, it will reduce the action of ferroportin. So hepcidin, if it is more, it will hamper iron absorption. So ferroportin is actually responsible for moving iron across mucosal cell membrane, across the cell membrane. So if hepcidin is high, it will first affect DMT1, so it will, absorption will be hampered at the level of mucosa, as well as absorption will be hampered at the level of from intestinal to the blood cells. So remember, hepcidin more means iron absorption will be low. When iron absorption will be low? If there is excess iron in the body. So actually, the level of hepcidin translates with the level of iron. So over here you can see, if there is anemia, means there is low iron, then hepcidin level also becomes low. So once they become low, the DMT1 and the ferroportin both will be increased, and then iron absorption will be increased. Get my point? So remember, level of iron, level of hepcidin. So if iron is high, we don't need iron. If iron is high, we don't need iron. How it is controlled? Iron sources trigger the synthesis of hepcidin. Hepcidin will negatively affect the iron absorption transport proteins. So if iron absorption transport protein, that is DMT1 and ferroportin, are reduced, there will be no absorption of iron. Fine. So stores regulation. Okay, these are various levels of regulations. Okay, anywhere when the iron stores fall, means iron is stored in the bone marrow. Okay, so if due to iron deficiency, remember, when there is iron deficiency in diet, since iron is already stored in the body, just like fat soluble vitamins, the deficiency symptom will not be immediate. There are excess stores of iron which are first used up, and then if the stores are depleted, then only symptoms of iron deficiency will occur. But by the time whenever the stores are getting depleted, they already signal the mucosa that we are running short in our supplies. Please signal iron absorption. So what will happen? If the iron stores fall, hepcidin will increase, then ferroportin synthesis I'm sorry. Okay, I just messed it up. If iron is low, as hepcidin level coincides or correlates with the level of iron, hepcidin level will also be low. So the hepcidin level will decrease, and that will lead to increase in the ferroportin and DMT1, and that will lead to increased iron absorption. Okay, so if you are getting confused by my confusing delivery of sentences, please read this once on your own and it will be very easier for you. If you are having any problems, feel free to get back to me and I'll explain it again. And the last regulation is at the level of RBC synthesis, so erythropoietic regulation. So what happens if there is anemia? So the stores are already depleted. Now when there is anemia, the RBCs, there are various stem cells, the erythroid precursors, etc. They will signal the mucosa to increase iron absorption. Okay. Now you saw in this figure that in the last step there is transferrin, that is the protein which helps in transfer of iron, and F stands for ferritin, that is the storage form of iron. Okay. Now you need to know that actually these transferrin receptors, okay, transferrin receptors are the ones that first helps to bind with the iron, and then they are actually utilized for transport. Now there is a reciprocal regulation between synthesis of ferritin and the transferrin receptors. There are two reciprocal regulation. Number one, we see there is a reciprocal regulation of hepcidin. So if hepcidin increases, those DMT and ferroportin will reduce. Now we are seeing two different things, that is ferritin and transferrin receptors. So when the iron levels are high, okay, when iron levels are high, the ferritin is stored, ferritin is synthesized to store iron, and there is no requirement for further uptake of iron. Why? See, when there is iron deficiency, means in body iron is low, in body iron is low. So from here we are asking transferrin to deliver iron to the bodies. I think this is not visible due to my big head. So if body iron is low, this will trigger transferrin so that it takes up iron from the ferritin stores and it delivers to the transferrin or delivers to the iron in blood, suppose in case of anemia. But if there is no iron deficiency, if the iron level in blood is normal, there will be no need of this transferrin, because whatever is present in blood will be used up. We don't need excess iron from stores to be delivered to the blood, so there will be no requirement of transferrin. In that situation, iron will be only stored in case stored as ferritin. So there will be excess ferritin, but there will be no transferrin. So that is what is meant by this statement, that whenever there is iron is in excess, we don't need iron transport, we only need iron storage. So whenever there is no need of uptake of iron, there is no need of transferrin receptors, and it will be only stored as ferritin. At the same time, there is no uptake for further iron, and transferrin receptor will be not synthesized. Even if you are getting confused with all of this, just remember the relation between ferritin and the transferrin receptors are just the opposite. If ferritin level is low, transferrin receptor level will be very high in blood, and if transferrin receptor level is low, ferritin will be very high, because it deals with the storage and requirement, which is actually the opposite of each other. So how iron is stored in blood? So see, we have already discussed the mucosal block theory and the regulation of mucosal block theory, as well as the mechanism of iron absorption. Fine, this will be a long question. The next part of the long question, because mucosal block theory is always accompanied by a short 3 marks question on iron transport. So you must know that after absorption what is happening. So as you know, in case of after the iron is delivered to the cell surface from the stored, it is stored as, or it is transported as transferrin. Now this in iron deficiency, this transferrin level is increased. Okay, you know that one molecule of transferrin can bind 2 molecule of iron. Okay, this you should know. Next, the next parameter that we see is total iron binding capacity. Okay, total iron binding capacity is actually iron binding capacity of the transferrin receptors. Okay, the transferrin, how much iron it can bind. So level of transferrin as well as the iron binding capacity of transferrin, both are important. Now, as you have guessed, in case of iron deficiency anemia, that is iron is now low in the body, there will be excess synthesis of transferrin receptors and the binding capacity will be very much increased because we need more iron to bind and transferred. So remember, in case of iron deficiency anemia, when serum iron is reduced, the TIBC will always be increased. Okay, in anemia, TIBC will be increased, very important, right? And serum iron is reduced, of course, in iron deficiency anemia. You know, this transferrin actually is actually 20% saturated with iron normally. Normal it is 20% saturated, so the TIBC is generally 20%, but it actually rises. You don't need to know, just forget it. What is the normal level of TIBC, what is the normal level of transferrin, it may be given in your textbook, you don't need to remember. Next, we discussed that celluloplasmin helps in transport. How? It acts as a peroxidase and it converts ferrous to ferric. We told you transferrin receptors. This is just the previous repetition of the previous slide. Transferrin receptors are present on cells which synthesize heme, and one transferrin receptor can bind to 2 molecule of transferrin. Okay, and one transferrin can bind with 2 atom of iron, right? Now this iron binding capacity is not fixed, it will increase depending on the iron deficiency or in excess state, right? Now what happens, a transferrin receptor, okay, see over here, just see what happens, a transferrin receptor will bind to transferrin, 2 molecule of transferrin. So when 2 molecule of transferrin is bound with the transferrin receptor, the iron molecules will be internalized in the cells. This is actually the next step of the diagram of whose screenshot you took. Again, I am going back, back and forth. You hate back and forth, right? But this is important for this one. So now the transferrin is in bloodstream. So what happens? It will now reach the cells in which heme will be synthesized. In the cell surface, there is transferrin receptor. This transferrin, 2 molecule of transferrin will bind to the transferrin receptor, and then the iron molecule will be internalized in the cell. This is what I mean over here. So transferrin receptors are present on the cells which synthesized heme, that is the erythroblast and the erythrocytes. The transferrin receptor bind to 2 molecule of transferrin, and the iron transferrin receptor is then internalized. Iron is taken by the cells. So this is the mechanism of iron transport and iron absorption from the mucosa to the cell. Okay, this is not easy. There are a lot of steps. There are multiple interconversion of iron from ferrous to ferric, ferric to ferrous. So please, you should practice this section by writing over and over again. This is a bit difficult compared to regular vitamins, which was actually easy to remember. Okay, but this is often confusing. Just remember, iron crosses the cell in ferrous form and it is transported and stored in ferric form. So this is the last slide of this class. Okay, Yes, this is the last slide of this class. We will be going to the applied part in the next class. So just bear with me for a few more moments. So as you know, this is simply repetition. The storage form of iron is ferritin. Okay, it is present in the intestinal mucosal cell, liver and bone marrow. Now, as you read, apoferritin combines with iron to form ferritin. So the capacity of apoferritin actually is 4000 iron atoms per molecule. This is just for your interest, not important to remember. Okay. Now 23% of iron is present in ferritin. Normally, plasma contains very little ferritin. Why? Because ferritin in plasma is elevated in iron overload. This ferritin is actually part of iron store. It is not present in plasma. Why will it be present in plasma? In plasma is not a storage form, but ferritin is a storage form, right? So, if iron is in excess in the body, then ferritin level will go high, will go up, because we always assess plasma ferritin level. We always assess iron from blood. Iron studies from blood. So plasma ferritin will be very high when iron is high, and plasma ferritin will be very low in case of iron deficiency. So thus plasma ferritin level is an index of body iron stores. So if ferritin level is very low, ferritin, we can conclude there is an iron deficiency. Okay, so in iron deficiency anemia, the first marker, that is the earliest marker of iron deficiency anemia, is lowering of serum ferritin. Mind, it is not iron. Okay, so even if before the clinical features of anemia, serum ferritin starts getting low. So that is an important signal that the body now needs iron. Next, as I told you, the synthesis of ferritin and transferrin receptors are reciprocally regulated. So when iron is high, ferritin is synthesized to store iron and the transferrin synthesis is blocked. Okay, and in iron deficiency anemia, ferritin content is reduced. So all this I am telling you over and over again, simple repetition. Remember, ferritin corresponds to the iron level, and level of transferrin receptor and ferritin are reciprocally controlled. Now one last thing I will tell you before I conclude this session, that is hemosiderin. Hemosiderin is also another storage form of iron. Now from ferritin, iron is very easily released because it is the available ready storage form of iron. Whenever we need iron, ferric is converted to ferrous and it is released. But in case of hemosiderin, iron is released very slowly. What is hemosiderin? It is actually a deproteinated form of ferritin. So apoferritin, ferritin, they all contain a bit of protein. Okay, hemosiderin is also protein. Anything that ends with IN, okay, is a protein for a large general consideration. But the amount of protein compared to ferritin is actually low in hemosiderin. So who triggers this is actually done by lysosome. Lysosome actually deproteinize the ferritin in order to convert it into another storage form, that is hemosiderin, which is also found in tissues like liver, bone marrow and spleen. Okay, but it is insoluble, rather insoluble, that is more insoluble than ferritin, and the iron is more slowly released. Remember, the disease which I will be discussing in detail in the next class, if it is increase the hemosiderin iron overload, it is known as hemosiderosis. Hemosiderosis. In the next class, we will be discussing iron deficiency anemia, how to treat iron deficiency anemia, what are the symptoms of iron deficiency and iron toxicity. Okay, so let us recap once again what we studied in this class. We talked about the total level of iron, we talked about few enzymes and proteins that contains iron, we talked about how iron is circulated from various storage forms and what are the losses of iron normally and abnormally, and how much iron we eat and what is absorbed. Next, we looked at the requirement of iron and we took a note that milk is a very poor source of iron, therefore nature has designed fetus so that it drives all, or it takes up all the sources of iron from the mother. The sources of iron in case of adults are green leaf vegetable and jaggery. Next, we came to the factors affecting iron absorption. We studied that ferrous form is readily absorbed, which is held by ascorbic acid and interfered by phytic and oxalic acid and minerals like lead. Next, we looked at the mucosal block theory. We learned how a mucosal regulation of iron happens with the help of various transporters. We learned that ferrous form crosses the cells and ferric form is the storage form of iron. We learned about storage proteins like ferritin, and we learned about transporter proteins like transferrin, and we also learned how they are regulated at the level of mucosa by hepcidin and also at the level of storage and erythropoiesis. We looked at how iron is transferred, what is transferrin, what is iron binding capacity, what is ceruloplasmin, and how exactly transferrin receptor help to internalize iron. And lastly, we looked at the storage of iron. It is stored in the form of ferritin, and what is hemosiderin and how ferritin level relates with iron deficiency or iron overload. So I thank you all for attending this session. This is not over. We will continue with the second session of iron and we will conclude iron over there. And feel free to get back to me in the comment section and also revise this iron class before going into the next class, and I'll be seeing you in the next one. Till then, bye and take care.